welcome to The Edge for Monday, May 27th, 2024. I'm Devonne, Cornelius, and thank you so much for joining me in the program for today. It's 7 minutes past the 11 o'clock hour. Let me apologize for the bit of a late start, but I'm here and look forward to having this conversation with you for the next hour. Of course, good morning to those of you on the World Wide Web. It is www.zizonline.com, or if you're tuned in via the radio, 96.1 FM, and our other frequencies. And if you're listening on our social media pages, such as our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me in today's edition of The Edge. It's the beginning of a new week, and so I hope you guys are excited and look forward to all of the possibilities that are to come. Today, I want to put out a question to the listening audience. It is one that is sensitive and one that is, I think, often talked about in the penalty. Of course, I'm not going to bore you with reading an entire document from page to page, but I'm going to take some highlights from it that I think would be interesting for you to know. So, the death penalty in the Greater Caribbean, a detailed fact sheet. It says the memorandum was prepared by Julian Rupnow of the Fredrickson and Byron PA law firm at the request of the Advocates for Human Rights. Additional information and review was provided by the Advocates for Human Rights, the World Coalition Against the Death Penalty, and Carmelo Campos Cruz of the Puerto Rican Coalition Against the Death Penalty. And this memorandum is divided into 7 topics. Those topics are procedure for imposing the death penalty in the Greater Caribbean, regional mechanisms, the status of the death penalty in the Caribbean, different journeys towards abolition, 4, evolution of regional jurisprudence, 5, the mandatory death penalty, 6, cruel and unusual punishment, and 7, effectiveness of the death penalty. Now, I mentioned the Greater Caribbean, and some of you perhaps are wondering, what do I mean when I say the Greater Caribbean? The Greater Caribbean consists of 25 independent nations and 14 territories of France, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, and the United States, and includes Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, Aruba, the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Costa Rica, Colombia, Cuba, Dominica, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, French Guiana, Grenada, Guadeloupe, Guatemala, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, the island of St. Bart's, Jamaica, Martinique, Mexico, Montserrat, Netherlands, Antilles, Nicaragua, Panama, Puerto Rico, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Martin, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos, Venezuela, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. A majority of the countries located in the Greater Caribbean have abolished the death penalty, either in law or in practice. Either in law or in practice. For those countries that maintain the death penalty, the procedure for criminal trial and sentencing is similar throughout the Greater Caribbean. Most death penalty cases in the Caribbean countries are tried in the first instance before a local high court, and those who are convicted and sentenced to death may appeal at a local or regional appellate court. Finally, depending on the particular country, the case may be subject to a final appeal to either the London-based Judicial Committee of the Privy Council or the Caribbean Court of Justice. So that is some information there on the procedure for imposing the death penalty in the Caribbean. Now, it also speaks to regional human rights mechanisms, and it says both the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights stem from the American Convention on Human Rights, a regional treaty that came into force on July 18, 1978. The treaty is binding on the 25 countries or the 25 Caribbean nations that have ratified it. In 1959, the Organization of American States, pursuant to the treaty, created the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And that commission has several functions, including analyzing and investigating petitions alleging violations of human rights, recommending measures nations should take to investigate petitions, and presenting cases to the Inter-American Court. It also goes on to speak about the status of the death penalty in the Caribbean and different journeys towards abolition. Now, before discussing in greater detail the issues regarding capital punishment in the Greater Caribbean, it is important to note that a difference exists between the Spanish or French-speaking countries and the English-speaking countries in the region. Historically, the Spanish-speaking countries in the region have been at the forefront of abolishing the death penalty worldwide. Venezuela was the first independent country in the world to abolish the death penalty, which it did in 1863. Costa Rica, Panama, and Colombia, among others, all followed, with the Dominican Republic and Haiti more recently abolishing the death penalty. Guatemala and Cuba retain the death penalty in law, but both countries have made commitments to eliminating its use. And if I did not mention, this report was prepared in 2013. Now, it goes on to speak about the evolution of the regional jurisprudence and the mandatory death penalty, but I want to get down to the part where it speaks about the effectiveness of the death penalty. Because I believe when people have the conversation about having the death penalty in the Caribbean, in St. Kitts and Nevis and in the Caribbean, most people comment on the effectiveness of the death penalty. And they would tell you that they are of the opinion that the death penalty would be a strong deterrent to crime. And so this report speaks briefly on the effectiveness of the death penalty. It says that the death penalty is often favored by those who believe it acts as a deterrent and has a constructive effect on violent crime rates. For example, in Trinidad and Tobago, which has one of the highest murder rates in the world, media often report that the death penalty is widely supported. A survey said that 91% of Trinidadians stated their support for the death penalty. Politicians in such countries often publicly voice their support for the death penalty and their disapproval of procedural safeguards that make imposition of the death penalty more difficult and time-consuming. However, studies and public opinion So that while most people initially respond supportively when asked about death sentences, their opinion changes when confronted with practical cases and additional information. In the above-mentioned survey conducted in Trinidad and Tobago, only 49% of the interviewees supported the death penalty in relation to specific scenarios. And so after they've been presented with practical cases and more information, their views changed on that. And that is usually the case in terms of when you have more information, you are better informed. So there are 5 findings that support the conclusion that deterrence of others is not, as many politicians in Trinidad and Tobago, according to press reports, appear to believe, an important reason why members of the public support the death penalty. Firstly, those who favored the mandatory death penalty placed deterrence of others very low down on their list of reasons, well below retribution. Second, when asked what their view would be if the death penalty were shown by new scientific evidence not to have an extra deterrent effect above long imprisonment, the majority of supporters of capital punishment, especially of the mandatory death penalty, said that this information would not make them change their mind. Third, that when they were asked to judge scenario cases and to give their reasons for choosing a death sentence as the appropriate punishment, only a tiny proportion, just over 1%, spontaneously mentioned its likely restraining effect on others. Fourth, supporters of the death penalty were in favor of retaining it, even though 3/4 of them, that it would be thought that it would be easier to convict people of murder if it were to be abolished. And fifth, when asked which of several policies they thought would be the most effective in controlling violent crime leading to death, only just more than 36% of those who favored the mandatory death sentence stated, quote, a greater number of executions of murderers, end of quote, and the proportion among all 1,000 respondents was only about 1 in 5, or 21%. The most favored approach was through social policies that would provide better moral education for young people. These are the statistics of a survey done as it relates to the death penalty. It is 11:19 and you're listening to The Edge. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation here on The Edge. And if you're just tuning in, we are speaking on the death penalty, and we'll open the phone lines. I want to get your view and opinion of the death penalty. Let's take this break and we'll be right back.
Jeff, you leaving already, boss? You sure you could drive after them drinks?
Yeah, I could handle it, Ain't it too far from here. I'm gonna take me time.
Oh my God, Jeff, you're gone. I told you not to drink and drive.
The problem with drinking and driving is the morning after. Drink responsibly.
This message was brought to you by the St. Kitts Nevis National Council on Drug Abuse Prevention in collaboration with SKNIS.
Join us every Wednesday for In Focus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. In Focus, your government, your business.
Hey, I'm Mary J. Blige.
Alkaline.
Hey, I'm Cat from Third World.
Nicholas Branker here.
I'm Freddie Jackson.
You already know what it is. Rose.
And this is your boy Ketidan inviting you to our annual St. Kitts Music Festival.
Yep, that's right. From June 27th to June 29th, Mary J. Blige, Alkaline, Third World, the Nicholas Branker Band, Freddie Jackson, Rick Wass, and Ketidan will be joining Adamo, Akayu Sweet, T-Bone, I-Tabulous, Easy, Speedy, Pumpa, Nadia Batson, Corwin Dubois, Mr. Mention, Asa Bantan, Small Axe Band, Michael Tasia.
This madness in the capital, so I feel like I'm running town again.
Kabaka Pyramid, Jados, Busy Signal, Tommy Lee Sparta, Cableton, Massacre, Greenhouse Band featuring Mishka, Highlight. Ramon Watson, Tony Rebel, Brianna D, and 450. The 2024 St. Kitts Music Festival at the Warner Park Cricket Stadium, June 27th to June 29th. Big names with bigger vibes. This is where music meets paradise.
Welcome back to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm Devonne, Cornelius, and thank you for joining me in the program for today. It is 11:23, and we'll begin to open the phone lines to take your calls, to get your take on the conversation at hand. What is your take on the death penalty? That is the simple question on the floor. How do you feel about it? Do you feel that it is effective? Now, before we take our first call for this morning, I wanted to share with you. Now, despite public support in many Caribbean countries, there is no positive support to the deterrent hypothesis. This conclusion is supported by murder rates in the Greater Caribbean, which show no correlation between murder rates and capital punishment. In the countries with the 10 highest murder rates, there are abolitionists, and there are 3 abolitionists and 7 are retentionists. In the countries with the 10 lowest murder rates, 8 are abolitionists and 2 are retentionists. Thus, a Caribbean nation with a high murder rate is more likely to be retentionist, and a nation with low murder rate or a low murder rate is more likely to be abolitionist. It is 11:24. We'll open the phone lines and begin taking your calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. What is your take on the death penalty in the English-speaking Caribbean or in the Caribbean? How do you feel about it? And do you think it'll be effective? Do you think it is something that would be a strong deterrent against crime? How do you feel about it? As I mentioned earlier when I opened the conversation, I did promise that I was going to come back and have a conversation on this, and for future I will definitely invite human rights advocates and legal minds to get their take on the death penalty, its effectiveness, and how does it work in terms of the implementation and all that we need to know. And to further expound on the information that I shared earlier as it relates to the regional mechanisms, the procedure for imposing the death penalty in the Greater Caribbean, and I listed the countries that fall within the Greater Caribbean, the status of the death penalty. Has it been removed from law, or has it been removed from just practice? The cruel and unusual punishment and the effectiveness of the death penalty. Now, the report that I shared with you, it draws primarily upon information and jurisprudence from the following sources, such as the United Nations in terms of their Human Rights Committee, the Commission on Human Rights, and the UNDP and the Office on Drugs and Crime. It also has support from the regional appellate courts, such as the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. It has support from the regional human rights mechanisms, or let me not say support, but information. The regional human rights mechanisms in terms of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and non-governmental organizations such as the World Coalition Against the Death Penalty, Amnesty International, and the Death Penalty Worldwide. Now, I also threw out this topic to a few of people, and they gave their view on it. As to how they feel about the death penalty. Some of the views were interesting, and I want to read part of a comment that was shared with me. So, a person was of the opinion that we need to reinforce or re-implement, was the word that they used, the death penalty. And they said some of these people walking around here are actually cold-blooded murderers and need to be and should face the death penalty. In addition, the person was of the opinion that we need more funds allocated to national security to conduct in-depth investigations. If we have to bring them in, so be it. He said someone must be made an example. They were basically giving their take on the death penalty, and they are of the view that it should be brought back in. Another person was of the view that it is gone for good and they don't see it coming back because the liberal Democrats stopped us from doing it. But most of the views, some of them which I can't share, they're not radio language to say, but they were interesting, really, really interesting thoughts. One person said, I think it should be reinstated and enforced from time to time, and they were of the view that it is a powerful deterrent to crime. That is their view on it, that it is a powerful deterrent to crime and it will deter people from committing crime. As the statistics show, those countries that have a high murder rate, they are for it, and those countries that have a low murder rate, they are not necessarily for it, and they believe that it should be abolished or it should be retained. Now, I want to share some more information with you as it relates to the death penalty and its history in the Caribbean. Now, it goes on, it says here that it's very easy to convict someone under our legal system who may be innocent, and there is no redress unless you have public campaigns to overturn a decision, and we don't have that kind of culture in the Bahamas. So given the absence of that sort of activism in our community, the death penalty really is a dangerous weapon in the hands of the legal system. That is according to Arthur Dion Hanna Jr., director of the Legal Aid Clinic in the Bahamas. They believe that the death penalty is a dangerous weapon in the hands of the legal system. And that is a rather interesting comment. As I tell you, there are a lot of people who believe that it is a powerful deterrent to crime. As one of the comments I shared said, they believe that it is a powerful deterrent to crime, and if it were to be reinstated or reintroduced or enforced or whatever, it will decrease crime drastically. Now, Another comment, and this is from Nelson Mandela on the 9th of September 1996. He says, it is not because the death sentence has been scrapped that crime has reached such unacceptable levels. Even if the death sentence is brought back, crime itself will remain as it is. We've established that you can't stop crime. You could decrease it, you could limit it in your community, but there is no stopping of crime. Unfortunately, when people make up their minds to commit a criminal act, whether it is to rob, whether it is to kill, and any other forms of crime, they have already made up their mind, and there are not many people who would be able to convince them otherwise. And that is the harsh, very, very harsh reality. That is a very harsh reality. But this is the information as it relates to the death penalty. Some argue it is good, others argue it is bad, others say it is a dangerous weapon for the legal system. Now, going back to the procedure for imposing the death penalty in the Caribbean, it says that another regional court is the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and that was established by the OECS, of course. Now, the following countries are subject to the jurisdiction of the court. As you know, Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the British Virgin Islands. The Eastern Caribbean Court is divided into two sections, the High Court and the Court of Appeal. The High Court judges are based in each member state, whereas the judges of the Court of Appeal are based in St. Lucia and move to each territory to hear appeals from the High Court. And as you know, final appeals go to the Privy Council in the United Kingdom, and the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court has issued several important decisions regarding the imposition of the death penalty in its member states. Despite these apparent procedural safeguards, many retentionist countries in the Greater Caribbean struggle with challenges that lead to due process violations for those facing a potential death sentence. For example, Amnesty International notes several factors including heavy caseloads, insufficient protection for witnesses, juror issues, high levels of crime, weak forensic capacities, and crime lab delays in processing evidence that contribute to delays in handling cases and appeals. That is the harsh reality. We'll now take your calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. That's 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll take your calls to get your view, your opinion on the death penalty. Let's take this break, and we'll be right back.
Of ZIZ Radio comes a political talk show like no other. The Edge, with host Devonne Cornelius giving you his take on the biggest stories happening in governance today. Got something to say? Let's hear it. Give us a call at 869-465-2555, Monday to Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon. One solid hour of in-depth analysis of the machinery that makes our country tick. The Edge, cutting into the matters at hand.
Back to the Edge and ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. Some more information as it relates to the death penalty. So, many retentionist countries have not carried out an execution in several years, and the most recent known execution within the Greater Caribbean was in 2008 in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thus, although people are sentenced to death in the Caribbean each year, executions have become increasingly rare. Charles Elroy Laplace was the last person executed in the Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis hanged Mr. Laplace on December 19th, 2008 for the murder of his wife. Laplace's case illustrates the challenges that retentionist countries face in ensuring adequate legal representation to people facing a death sentence. The UN Human Rights Committee comments that capital defendants should be provided with counsel at all stages of the proceedings. Yet it appears that Charles Laplace lacked the needed legal representation throughout critical stages of his post-conviction case. The ECSE, that's the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, dismissed his appeal on the grounds that he filed it past the deadline. Although Charles Laplace could have made a final appeal to the Privy Council, he did not do so. It appears likely that the government did not provide Charles Laplace with the necessary legal representation to assist him in filing an appeal or with the clemency application. Amnesty International calls attention to the question of whether Charles Laplace's rights to apply for an amnesty, pardon, or commutation were upheld. So Charles Laplace was the last person to be executed in the Caribbean, and this was on 19 December 2008 for the murder of his wife. As executions have become rarer, regional jurisprudence in the Caribbean has also developed regarding the imposition of the death penalty. And the CCJ was inaugurated of the death penalty, The CCJ issued its first judgment regarding the death penalty on November 8th, 2006 in Boyce and Joseph versus Barbados. In Boyce, the CCJ found the mandatory death penalty violates the right of life because of its arbitrary nature and its failure to restrict imposition of the death penalty to the most serious crimes. It is 11:40 and you're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. And if you're just tuning in, we're on the topic of the death penalty in the Caribbean. And it is basically a detailed fact sheet or report about the death penalty covering 7 topics, such as the procedure for imposing the death penalty, regional mechanisms, the status of the death penalty in countries across the Caribbean, the evolution of the regional jurisprudence, the mandatory death penalty, cruel and unusual punishment, and the effectiveness of the death penalty. And as I mentioned, people who have given their opinion on this believe that it is effective. So most people speak to the effectiveness of the death penalty and argue that it is a strong deterrent or a powerful deterrent to crime, and believe that it should be reimposed or reinstated or reestablished, or whatever the word is to use at this time, in terms of the death penalty in St. Kitts and Nevis and the Caribbean. Now, Ernest Lockhart of Bahamas, he was sentenced to death for the premeditated murder of another man. Ernest Lockhart was 21 years of age when he shot Caxton Smith in the back. On Lockhart's appeal, the Privy Council applied a 2-part test as used by the board. In the Chimingam versus the Queen 2009, where in order for a court to impose a death sentence, 2 requirements must be met. 1, the crime must be a worst of the worst offense. And 2, there must be no reasonable possibility of reform, and the goals of the punishment cannot be accomplished by any other means. In this case, the Privy Council found that Ernest Lockhart's crime of murder did not constitute the worst of the worst for purposes of applying for the death penalty. The Privy Council also commented on the second prong of the test and noted that the evidence relied upon by the lower court judge was insufficient to pronounce a death or a sentence of death. In applying the Shrimanagam decision, the Privy Council affirmed that a psychiatrist's report is necessary to properly address the question of reform. In Lockhart, the lower court's reliance on the probation report was not sufficient to issue a sentence. I think we have some callers coming in. Okay. We had some difficulties with the phone lines. We did. We had some difficulties with the phone lines, so I think some callers should be coming in now. We have a caller, and we'll take our first call for this morning. Hello, caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Devonne.
Good morning.
According to the advertisement for this show, it is not a 1 hour in-depth conversation. But anyway, you got to read out what you want us to base our input on. So that's fair. Let me ask you a question now. The prison here, it marked HMS.
HMS?
Yeah, HMP, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, HMP. And we know that was built by England. And they got the machine in there called the galleys, which also come from England. But where they put the galleys in there? And I want to know if all of them in authorities who saying that the capital punishment is cruelty. Well, when they kill somebody, that ain't cruelty to the victim. And I want to know if all those who are against capital punishment, if it's a man or a woman, whosoever it is, they happen to go home in the house and they meet a perpetrator in there, done whatever they do to the husband wife and kill the wife and then kill the child in there, and they got the opportunity to put down the perpetrator in there. If they're going to leave him and tell him go, they're going to call the police. Vice versa. If a woman go home, meet somebody got your husband tied up in the house and murder the husband and kill all the children, and they have the opportunity to kill the perpetrator in there, if they're going to say, no, I don't believe in capital punishment, go and call the police, let them lock you up. That is foolishness. The Bible says if you shed someone's blood innocently, your blood is supposed to shed too. And I agree with that. The Bible cannot go wrong.
All right.
Thank you, Devon.
Thank you, caller, for your contribution to the program. Let's take this other call. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
You have to turn off the radio. I'm getting too much feedback.
Anyhow, you see people believe they're no more than God, or they're no better than God, you're going to think always going wrong. The Bible says if you shed man blood, or man your blood should be shed. So, when you kill, unless it is self-defense, or to defend the life of somebody else, you're supposed to hang. Thank you.
All right, caller, thank you for your contribution. Let's take this other caller. Hello, caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Yeah. You see, when man go away from the Bible, right? This is about what happened to the world now. The Bible don't tell lie, and Christ can't go back on the world. He said, when you take a man, shed a man's blood in death, you shall dead also. And because of mankind, patch it up in all kind of way. This is why you see the world now we face all this criminality. Yeah? Everything now we facing because mankind created against one another. And nobody had no reward, no regard, and nobody like. Now you don't tell me when a man kill your son that you struggle to raise, and that your son now you're depending on now who look after you. And he get caught, and because he get 40 years in jail, that somebody is going to jump up and say 40 years is too much to put for a man. So who won't help you because your son dead.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for your contribution. Let's take some more calls. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
I don't agree with the death penalty. It don't deter crime. Please give me a little chance to explain myself why I say this.
Sure, go ahead.
We went to school and we learned about Christopher Columbus and we learned about Drakes and all these pioneers, as they brand them as pioneers and explorers. But when they show up at our shows, they show up with a sword, a pistol in the waist, and a rifle. That look like they came for peace. And in order for our people today to be higher educated, you had to learn about these guys. They were martyrs. We learn about them. Today, we go in school, our children go in school with computer and phones, and they're researching. They are more educated than me, era people. I'm surprised to see and hear that a lot of these young boys who commit crimes, they got good grades in school. A lot of us in my age never had good grades in school, but we were well behaved. You understand? What's happening? You've mentioned a part in your speech about education. When I heard Dr. Jew got into power, the police department went to the school, and one of the police who went there, Sergeant, I forget her name, said one of the things that touched him is the young kids in preschool, kindergarten school, is saying when they come big they want to be a bad man because bad man making money. That hit me with a nose. Right there I realize we are not proactive. The criminals are more active than us. They don't get to these kids in the school. We need to educate the children about the dangers of guns, what gun could do and what gun could protect you with. We, as a colonialist country, we need to be able to protect our property because nothing in this world is, what happened in Columbus, sometimes can happen again. You understand?
Yeah. All right, caller, we want to take some more calls, all right?
Another thing with the law.
We want to take some more calls. We do have to take some more calls. It's 11:49. The phone lines are open. We're taking your calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. You guys, when you call to make a contribution, try to get your point across as quickly as possible. I'm not seeking to cut off anyone, but I'm just trying to get as much people as possible. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning. I'm not hearing the caller. Let's try to take another one. Do we have any more callers? No. Okay. It is 11:49 and you're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM. Let's head back to the phone lines. I think we have a caller there. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Devonne?
Yes.
Uneducated people are skilled and well-educated people are skilled. Sometime in the 60s, two bad men come out of jail and they clash. They say, well, we're going to see who bad today here. And they went outside the room shop. And they had the knife and one kill one. And the killer went deep down by the police station, tell them, see it here, the blood in it, I just shot the bad man up there. Are you hang me for you want? See you, Devon.
All right, caller. Thank you for your contribution to the program. Let's take this other call. Hello, you're on the air.
Good morning, Devon.
Yes, good morning.
I believe in that. I believe in that hanging. Let me get from the radio.
Yes, please.
Oh my God. I believe in it. Plenty. Because if not in that, I believe in it, don't kill people when they're young. One time, I was 17 years. I went to prison. When I went to prison, the same man going to hang. Remember, night till morning. I know what they say. If that nigga to go through, change my life. So I changed my life from that because I had a plan. Anybody do me when I'm young, I'm 57. Anybody do me want to kill him. When I went to prison, I'm chop up a man and go to prison. I was trying to kill him now. But when I hear He bought the hang. Remember all of the man is supposed to hang. Remember all until morning. And that changed my mind. See you.
All right, Carter, thank you for your contribution to the program. You're listening to The Edge for Monday, May 27th. We are on the topic of the death penalty. What is your view? And let's head back to the phone lines and take some more calls.
Yes, good morning, Devonne.
Morning.
Yes, sometimes it's true we're sorry for them with the death penalty. But my nephew was coming from work over Figget Bay, he and his girlfriend, and somebody parked up the vehicle, and he couldn't see a hooker. They were in the bush. And they shoot him, and up to now, we ain't even know who shoot him. We don't get nothing. So some of them just shoot what they think, but you know, we got family. Because he dead down, and not a soul know who shoot him, because his girlfriend wouldn't talk. So it's a lot of things with death penalty. But we are sorry for them too, but they don't kill. Take care.
All right, you too. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. You're listening to The Edge. The phone lines remain open and we're taking your calls, your views and opinions on the death penalty. As I mentioned earlier, there are some people who are of the opinion that this is a strong deterrent or a powerful deterrent to crime, and they believe that it should be reinstated or reimposed in the Caribbean. I've shared some details on this with you, and I promise to come back to continue the conversation, of course, with people on the panel to give their professional opinion on it, and we'll be looking into the effectiveness of the death penalty, the various mechanisms, the legal mechanisms, the evolution of the original jurisprudence. We have a caller on the line. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Devon.
Yes.
You see, this kind of program, you go come to me all year and 1 hour, because this is topic that need to hear, and you need to just touch on certain things and then let people share the input. Because let me tell you, this crime, you know, it has stop unless you do something serious, and all the government, them, all of them, our girls could carry 2 men at one time. And if they hang them, if they start to hang now, a lot of men don't want to get dead. They don't kill, but they don't want to get dead. So if you start to get legalists and you start to hang, you won't see a lot of men change their attitude.
All right. All right, caller, thank you for your opinion on that. Do we have any more callers on the line? No, we don't. It is 11:54, and you're listening to The Edge on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. If you tuned in late, we were on the topic of the death penalty and where it stands in the Caribbean. I shared a detailed fact sheet. Of course, I could not go through the entire document, but I just shared with you some highlights of what the document says in terms of the procedure for imposing the death penalty, the countries and territories in the Caribbean that where the report was conducted on. It speaks to the human rights mechanisms, it speaks to the status of the death penalty, it speaks to the evolution of regional jurisprudence in terms of the retentionist countries and the last person executed. It speaks about the mandatory death penalty and a number of things. A very detailed document, and I promise to come back to continue this conversation with you, the listeners, and to give you more time to give your take and opinion and different insights on the death penalty. It is an interesting conversation to have. An interesting point that was made in the report is that once you have more information, your view and opinion may change. I'm not here seeking to change your view and your opinion on the death penalty. However you feel about it, that is totally you. But I can't come here and be ignorant or arrogant and not provide you with the information as it relates to the death penalty. And so I will continue to do that and look forward to having a fruitful conversation with you, the listeners. I am out of time. I'm going to have to begin to wrap up to make way for the midday newscast. For those people who have been asking for more time for the program, your concerns have been heard, and we are looking at extending the time for the program. But in the first instance, we just wanted to start with 1 hour to get in, hear your views, look at various topics across St. Kitts and Nevis. But we will be extending the time of the program soon. So that is coming soon. Until next time, you guys, stay safe and continue to enjoy the rest of your Monday. Have a good one. See you tomorrow. Same station, same time. Take care.